Right now, someone is losing interest in you. Not because you're not enough. Not because you said the wrong thing, or forgot some anniversary, or didn't try hard enough. She's losing interest because you're too available. Because every time she looks up, there you are. Every time her phone buzzes, it's you. Every silence you could have let breathe, you filled with another paragraph, another just checking in, another reassurance she never asked for. And I know that sounds harsh. I know it does. Because you've been doing everything you thought you were supposed to do. You've been showing up consistently. You've been emotionally open. You've been present, reliable, attentive. All the things every article and podcast and therapist told you women want. And yet, something's off. She's pulling back. Her texts are shorter. Her energy is different. She's there, but she's not really there. And you can feel it in your gut even if you can't explain it. Here's what no one told you. The problem isn't that you're not good enough. The problem is that you've made yourself so constantly available that she's forgotten what it feels like to miss you. And when someone forgets what it feels like to miss you, they start to forget why they wanted you in the first place. That's what we're getting into today. Not some manipulative trick. Not some childish game of ignore her until she cries. That's not what this is. What this is a psychological reality about human desire, perceived value, and the quiet power of absence. And once you understand it, really understand it, it changes not just how she sees you, but how you see yourself. Let me be clear about something before we go any further. This isn't about ghosting someone to hurt them. It's not about playing games with someone's emotions or punishing someone for not giving you enough attention. If that's what you're looking for, you're in the wrong place. What we're talking about is something much deeper. We're talking about the moment a man stops performing for someone else's approval and starts living for his own purpose. And the strange, almost paradoxical thing that happens when he does. Quick note before we dive deeper. Everything I'm sharing today applies to situations where there's mutual respect and a fundamentally healthy connection. If you're in a relationship where there's manipulation, consistent disrespect, or any form of abuse, the answer isn't strategy. It's distance, support, and safety. Please take care of yourself first. Always. Now, let's get into the uncomfortable truth. You've been taught a story about love. The story says, prove yourself. Show her how much you care. Through words, through effort, through constant, unwavering presence. And she'll eventually match your energy. She'll see how devoted you are, and that devotion will make her fall deeper. That's the blueprint, right? That's what most men are handed from the time they're old enough to have a crush. Be consistent, be available, show her she's your priority above everything else. And look, in principle, those aren't bad things. Consistency matters. Emotional availability matters. But there's a line, and most men blow past it without even realizing, where consistency becomes suffocating predictability, and availability becomes a total absence of boundaries. Where showing up all the time stops communicating, I care about you, and starts communicating something very different. I have nothing else going on. You are my entire world. And that's the shift, that quiet, invisible moment where things start to erode. Not because she's shallow or ungrateful, not because she's playing some twisted game, but because human psychology is wired in a very specific way, and no amount of wishing it were different changes how desire actually functions beneath the surface. Think about it like this. Have you ever had a song you absolutely loved? Like, it hit you in the chest the first time you heard it, and you played it on repeat for days straight. What happened by the end of the week? It lost something. The magic faded. Not because the song changed. The melody was the same, the lyrics were the same, but your brain adapted. It stopped registering the song as something special because it was constant. It became background noise, wallpaper, something your brain could safely ignore. That's not a flaw in you. That's a neurological feature. It's called hedonic adaptation, your brain's natural tendency to adjust to consistent stimuli and eventually stop responding to them. And the uncomfortable truth, the same thing happens in relationships when one person is always, endlessly, unreservedly present without interruption. This brings us to the first thing that most people completely overlook, and it might be the real engine behind everything we're talking about today. Over-availability kills desire. Not love necessarily, not care, but desire. That magnetic pull, that craving to be near someone, that leaning in energy that makes early relationships feel electric, that lives in the gap between presence and absence. It needs space to grow, and when there's no absence, there's no space. There's no room for wanting because there's never a moment of not having. Here's what happens psychologically when you're always available. You remove all uncertainty, every bit of it. And uncertainty, in measured, healthy, non-anxious doses, is one of the key ingredients that keeps emotional engagement alive. When she knows exactly when you'll text, exactly how you'll respond, exactly what you'll say, exactly how available you are at every hour of every day. Her brain has nothing left to process. There's no gap to fill, no question to sit with, no moment of, I wonder what he's doing right now, followed by that little spark of missing you. And that I was wondering. In a healthy dynamic, that's not anxiety. That's interesting. That's the attraction breathing. That's her brain going, I want to be around this person. But you've given her so much of yourself, so constantly, that there's nothing left to want. You've answered every question before she could ask it. You've filled every silence before she could feel it. I want you to sit with that for a second. You might be the most interesting, caring, incredible person she's ever met. Genuinely. But if you hand all of that to someone in an unbroken stream with zero interruption, they physically cannot appreciate it. It's like being at a buffet with 700 dishes. You can't actually taste any of them. There's no contrast, no palate cleanser, no moment of hunger between bites makes the next one hit different. You need the space between presence and absence. Both need to exist. That's where attraction lives. Now here's where this gets really interesting, because it taps into something researchers have studied for decades: the scarcity principle. You've probably heard of it in economics. When supply drops, perceived value rises. A limited edition sneaker isn't inherently better than a regular one, but because fewer people can have it, everyone wants it more. This isn't just a market principle. It's deeply wired into human cognition. We assign more significance, more value, more desire to things that are limited, things that might not always be available, things we have to reach for. Now, I'm not saying you should turn yourself into some rare commodity or play hard to get like it's a board game. That's the shallow interpretation, and it backfires every single time because people can smell inauthenticity from a mile away. What I'm saying is something more fundamental. When your time, your energy, your attention have real limits, not manufactured ones, but genuine ones, because you have a life that fills you up, they become worth something. She recognizes, on a level she might not even be conscious of, that your attention is a choice, not a default, not an automatic response, a deliberate decision to be here, with her, right now. There's a massive difference between a man who's always around because he has nowhere else to be, and a man who's around because he chose to be here, and sometimes isn't around because his life is genuinely demanding his energy elsewhere. Both might love her equally, but only one creates the conditions where his presence actually registers as something to value. Let me paint you a picture of what this looks like in real life. Say you've been texting her every morning, every afternoon, every night. Long paragraphs, quick reactions to her stories, memes at lunch, good morning messages before she's even awake. You're essentially a notification she can count on as reliably as her alarm clock. Now imagine, without any announcement, without any dramatic declaration, you simply have a full week. Your friend from out of town is visiting. You started a new project at work. You signed up for a class on Thursday nights. You respond to her when you can, warmly and genuinely. But you're not initiating every conversation. You're not filling every pause. You're clearly present in your own life. What happens? Her brain registers the shift, not with alarm, not if the foundation is healthy, but with a quiet recalibration. She notices the space, and in that space, something stirs. She starts reaching. She starts wondering. Not because you tricked her, not because you ran some calculated play, but because you created a room. And in that room, her own feelings finally had somewhere to show up. This leads into something that doesn't get nearly enough attention, and it might be the most important thing I say today. When you chronically overinvest in someone else, you erode your own identity. Slowly, quietly, in ways you don't even notice until one day you wake up and realize you can't remember the last time you did something just because you wanted to. Your hobbies faded. Your friendships got thin. Your ambitions got foggy. The gym membership went unused. The guitar gathered dust. The weekend plans that used to excite you got replaced with waiting around for her to be free. Everything became about her. Making her happy, keeping her interested, being what she needed at the expense of being who you are. And here's the painful, almost cruel irony. The version of you she was originally attracted to? That guy had a life. He had passions that lit him up. He had a confidence that came from being rooted in his own world. He had edges and depth and a spark that radiated outward because he was fulfilled from within. The more you dissolved yourself into this relationship, the more you lost the very things that made her lean in to begin with. You became a mirror with nothing behind it, reflecting her, always her, and offering nothing of your own. This is exactly why stepping back isn't a manipulation strategy. It's a correction. It's you remembering something critical. You existed before her. You'll exist after her. And the version of you who carries that knowledge in his bones, who doesn't need her validation to feel whole, is infinitely more compelling than the version who forgot it. So when I say disappear, I don't mean vanish from someone's life and leave them twisting in emotional confusion. That's cruelty, not strategy. What I mean is redirect. Take the energy you've been pouring into monitoring her mood, analyzing her texts, curating your availability around her schedule, and pour it back into yourself. Go to the gym, not to post about it, to feel something in your own body. Pick up the project you abandoned. Call the friend you've been neglecting because you were always busy waiting. Sign up for something that scares you a little. Cook a meal that takes 2 hours just because you want to learn. Take yourself somewhere on a Saturday afternoon with no phone, no agenda, and no one to report back to. That redirection does 2 things at the same time. First, it rebuilds you from the inside out. It gives you back your center of gravity, your confidence, your sense of self that doesn't wobble every time she takes an hour to respond. You start to feel like yourself again, the version of yourself you actually like. Second, and this is the part that catches people off guard, it naturally shifts how she experiences you. Because suddenly you're not orbiting, you're not hovering, you're moving. You have velocity and direction that has nothing to do with her. And that forward motion, that undeniable, this man is going somewhere energy, is one of the most quietly powerful things you can carry into any room, any conversation, any relationship. Let me take this one layer deeper. There's a well-documented principle in psychology called loss aversion. The core idea is simple but profound. People feel potential losses roughly twice as intensely as equivalent gains. Losing $50 stings far more than finding $50 excites. And this wiring doesn't stop at money. It runs through every relationship you'll ever have. When you've been a constant, guaranteed presence, and you become genuinely less available. Not cold, not hostile, just less automatically there. It registers in her emotional brain as a potential loss. Something she had that might be shifting. And that activates a level of attention that your constant presence never could. She starts to evaluate, to ask herself honest questions. Do I want this person in my life? Have I been taking this for granted? And if there's real connection underneath it all, if the foundation is solid. Your absence becomes the catalyst that clarifies her feelings. You didn't manufacture feelings that weren't there. You gave her the space to discover the ones that were. But here's where I need to be honest with you, because I'm not going to sugarcoat this part. Sometimes you pull back and she doesn't reach forward. Sometimes the silence you offer is met with more silence. And that tells you something too. Something you needed to know, but were too afraid to find out while you were busy filling every gap. If your effort was the only thing keeping the relationship alive, if the moment you stopped performing, the whole thing went quiet, that's not a failure on your part. That's information. Painful, necessary, ultimately liberating information. Because now you know. Now you're not building a castle on sand and pretending it's concrete. Clarity, even when it burns, is always better than a beautiful illusion. Silence communicates in a language most people underestimate. When you stop chasing, stop over-explaining. Stop flooding someone with constant proof of your devotion. Your silence says something powerful without you uttering a single word. It says, I'm not desperate. My peace matters to me. I have a life that sustains me. I trust that what's real between us doesn't require me to perform around the clock to keep it alive. That's not arrogance. That's groundedness. And it's one of the rarest, most attractive qualities a person can carry. Think about the people you respect most in your own life. They're probably not the ones who chase your approval. They're the ones who are settled in, who they are. They show up fully when they're present, but they don't lose themselves in others. They care deeply, but they don't broadcast their caring like a neon sign, begging to be noticed. That energy is rare, and it's magnetic. Not because it's calculated, but because it's real. So here's the rebuild. Here's where this becomes something you can do starting today. First, audit your availability honestly. Look at the last 2 weeks. How many conversations did you start versus her? How quickly did you respond every time? How often did you double text when she went quiet? Don't judge yourself. Just see the pattern clearly. Awareness is the first step, and you can't redirect what you refuse to look at. Second, create real distance, not theater. Don't sit in your apartment pretending to be busy while refreshing her profile every 4 minutes. Actually go live. Block out 3 evenings this week for something that has nothing to do with her. A workout. A dinner with someone you haven't seen in months. An hour in a bookstore where your phone stays in your pocket. The goal is not to perform busy. The goal is to actually become busy with your own life again. Third, when you do show up completely. This is the piece most people miss when they hear pull back. Pulling back doesn't mean becoming cold or distant when you're actually together. It means the opposite. When you're with her, in person, on a call, in a genuine exchange, you're warm, you're engaged, you're fully there, and then you go live your life. That contrast between full presence and real absence is what creates depth. It's what makes her replay the conversation after you've left. It's what makes your presence feel like something worth having. Fourth, do not explain your absence. You don't owe anyone a detailed itinerary of your week. If she asks what you've been up to, keep it light and honest. Had a great few days. Been busy with some stuff I'm excited about. That's it. The moment you over-explain, listing every reason you didn't text back faster, you signal that you feel guilty for having a life. And that guilt erases the very confidence you're trying to rebuild. Fifth, release the outcome. This is the hardest part and the most important. When you pull back, don't do it as a chess move with an expected result. Don't sit there tracking whether she noticed, counting hours between her responses, looking for proof that it's working. Do it for you. Do it because your life deserves your attention. Do it because the man you want to be doesn't revolve around one person's validation. If she leans in, beautiful. Let it unfold. If she doesn't, you've just learned something you needed to know. Either way, you win, because the real victory here was never about making her chase you. It was about becoming someone who doesn't need to be chased to feel whole. Here's how I want to leave you with this. The man she truly values, the one who occupies her thoughts, the one she brags about to her friends, the one she's afraid of losing, that man is not the one who's always there. He's the one who's so deeply rooted in his own life, so clear about his own worth, so genuinely full of purpose and direction, that his presence is a gift, not a given. He doesn't chase. He doesn't perform. He doesn't shrink. He lives, fully, unapologetically, on his own terms. And he makes room for her in that life, not the other way around. You already have everything you need to be that man. You just forgot it somewhere along the way because you got so focused on being enough for someone else that you stopped being enough for yourself. So this week, not someday, not when you feel ready, this week, I want you to take one step back. Not as a game, not to trigger a reaction, but to remember who you are when you're not performing for anyone. Reconnect with one thing that makes you feel alive outside of her. Give yourself one morning where the first thing you reach for isn't your phone to check if she responded. Start there. And pay attention to what shifts, not in her, but in you. Because that internal shift is the foundation. Everything else builds on it. I want to hear what this brought up for you. What's been the hardest part? The not texting? The sitting with silence? The fear that stepping back means losing her? Put it in the comments. Be honest. Because your honesty might be the exact thing someone else scrolling through here needs to read today. If this reframed how you think about attraction and self-worth, hit that like button so more people can find it. And subscribe. We're going much deeper into the psychology of relationships, masculine identity, and becoming the most grounded, magnetic version of yourself. New content coming soon, and you'll want to be here for it. I'll see you in the next one.